Governor Hickenlooper has called for a special session of the legislature to begin on October 2nd to fix a problem in a new tax law that accidentally eliminated recreational pot tax revenue for special tax districts. Republican leaders questioned if the special session is needed, but Democrats support the move. Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Cory Gardner announced a bipartisan measure on Wednesday that would make it easier to conduct nationwide marijuana research. Patty, let's keep it simple for the first question. Is the special session needed?
Well, there's action definitely needed on that one bill, which, as we remember, it was the hospital provider fee variation. It was the fix. It was the long-discussed issue in the legislature. It was moved through very quickly at the end based on sustainability for rural Colorado, including hospitals like the one in Hugo that were worried they would have to close if it didn't pass. But it does prove that there's a reason for editors, and more specifically for proofreaders, because they moved so fast, they just missed the fact that in changing the marijuana tax from 10% to 15%, they eliminated RTD, the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, and some other special districts. Special session costs maybe $25,000 a day. RTD's estimated it's going to lose $3 million. So it's a better investment to do it now than wait until October. Presumably, they will only deal with the language issues, and as an editor, I'm happy to help. But if they did go back into the whole hospital provider fee controversy, and as an end run around Tabor, that could be a problem. Interestingly, there was another typo in a House bill regarding medical marijuana research. It was that would allow state-sanctioned marijuana research, which is very much needed. And it was only for medical marijuana. They wanted to include retail. Maybe they'll put that in the special session too. At the same time, Cory Gardner now is pushing for marijuana research on the federal level. It's only medical marijuana, but it is time for us to get some real science on marijuana so that we can decide what works, what doesn't work, especially as this huge market in California is about to open up.
Well, especially with the majority of states now having at least medical marijuana, it seems we would get some more momentum in D.C. Mike, let's go to the special session first. First of all, I appreciate and completely agree with Patty's point about the need for copy editors at the Capitol, but I'm stunned it took this long that we're here in the middle of September, like, oh, wait a second, we should fix this mistake that's just about to cost an organization $3 million. Does that delay surprise you?
Well, actually, I'm a little bit surprised that Hickenlooper would call this special session, because it reopens a very controversial bill that was, and let's not forget that what we're talking about, SB 267, was literally jammed through in the last couple of days of the session with about 70 pages of strike below language, all in an effort to avoid simply going to a vote of the people and asking if we could move this money out from underneath the Tabor caps. So basically what happens now is all the Republicans who voted for this thing get to come and revisit and relive their embarrassment and betrayal of voters and taxpayers by passing this bill that evades Tabor, and especially embarrassing for the sponsor, Senator Sonnenberg, who must have been too busy cutting deals in the last 2 days of the session to even know what was in his own bill. So this is an example of, let's call it the Obamacare syndrome. We had to pass it to know what was in it. And the fact of the matter is that if you're a lawmaker and if a bill lands in your committee in the waning days of the legislature, significant bill dealing with significant amounts of money and constitutional issues, and you have no idea what's in it, out of principle, you should simply say no.
John, we've clearly seen from Mike's point of view that there's going to be some sort of partisan divide on this. Is there a risk to the special session that where Hickenlooper might be asking, Governor Hickenlooper is opening up a opportunity for this to become a bigger Pandora's box?
Well, that's always a possibility. I'm a little perplexed in terms of this all happened in June. I mean, they should have understood that, as you mentioned before, it took them 4 or 5 months to figure out there was an error. RTD hired Branberry and McKenna, the lobbyist group, and those are the ones that were monitoring this bill and the language in the bill. They paid them $122,000 to monitor this whole issue. Now, if RTD was really concerned about making sure they got their $3 million or whatever the amount is from those taxes, it seems like that lobbyist firm should have caught this and should have known about this. At this point, I'm like, why don't you just give the money that RTD was supposed to get back to the people, the taxpayers?
Well, that might spark a special session itself there, John. Ian, I think we've seen
Excuse me, and on Gardner, I think he found the like button for marijuana. So there's a lot of that going on in Washington. I think. I don't know.
the like button, indeed. Ian, it's clearly a partisan issue, even from the reaction to the special session announcement, with Republican lawmakers saying that it's not needed. We're only 4 months away from the next session. Democratic, the House majority, Speaker of the House, Crisanta Duran, came out and said, we're for it, let's do it. Is this going to be we come in here for 5 minutes and rubber stamp this where we fixed it, or is this going to be a bigger fight?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the Colorado legislature here, so nothing's ever easy. Having worked down there for 10 years before I took my current gig, I actually worked with former Speaker Dickie Lee Hullinghorst and Republican Senator Larry Crowder on the first instantiation of the hospital provider fee enterprise fix a couple years ago that actually passed the House with broad bipartisan support and then met its death in the Senate committee where they have a majority by 1 seat. Bill Cadman was a lot less willing to sort of deal on that bill than it seems like Kevin Grantham, the Senate president, and Jerry Sonnenberg, I think he's Senate President pro tem, were willing to try and do what they could to save the rural hospitals. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what this issue is all about. So, you're opening up the doors of the Capitol, you're letting 100 lawmakers back in, anything can happen. The good news is that, according to our Constitution, it's the governor that actually sets the scope for the special session. And the governor has set the scope very, very narrowly to fix this one issue in this one bill, and that's it. There's questions about plenary power of the legislature. There's the ability for, certain members to move certain bills. I think those are all going to be interesting questions that come up here. For Republicans, Mike's right. I mean, it puts them in an awkward spot because a lot of them kind of bit down hard and kind of plowed through a lot of the right-wing special interest noise from Americans Prosperity and our good friends at the Independence Institute around Senate Bill 267 at the end of the session here. But let's not forget, you may take quarrel with the issue that there was a technical glitch that needs to be fixed right now. That's kind of why we have the power to hold a special session to begin with, not have to wait till January so RT doesn't get bled dry in the meantime. But quite frankly, these lawmakers are going to come back, and I really do hope that they continue to do the right thing for Colorado, because this was a broad bipartisan compromise where both sides kind of didn't love it, but the job got done and rural hospitals were able to stay open.